Again, welcome to everyone. My name is Samuel. I'm with F6S and presenting here today our open call number 2 and your guide to participate in this open call. So regarding today's agenda, it'll be structured into 2 main topics. One will be a brief introduction to AI4Media, what the project is about. A project which is offering 2 million euros to fund 20 projects focusing on the AI and the media domains. Then we'll get into some specifics on the open call. What are the rules, what you can expect from the program if you are funded. And as I've mentioned before, if at any time there's a question that you might have, you can either leave it until the end or start using the tools at your disposal to put down any questions that we'll get to in the specific moment of this presentation. So a brief introduction to AI4Media. Unfortunately, today we weren't able to get our coordinator to present, but nevertheless, I'll do my best to try and present what the project is and what we're trying to focus on, what our ambition is. So AI4Media mission is, as you can see, delivering next generation of AI research and training, okay, all steered towards media, society, and democracy, and simultaneously ensuring that what is done within the specific framework of ethics and trustworthiness because of the importance that AI has in the European community. Of course, the ethical implications related to AI, we have to keep those in mind in any future ongoing and the future deployments as well. How do we expect to achieve this? Essentially, what the project aims to do is become, on the one hand, a center of excellence, a place where we collect and aggregate all types of knowledge in the AI and media domains. And on a second level, simultaneously become a network of researchers and other stakeholders across Europe and beyond, people that can take advantage, leverage the information and knowledge that is developed and harvested within the Center of Excellence, but also simultaneously contribute to it. Okay, so these are 2 main pillars that we have within AI4Media. So together and by joining these forces, what we aim to do is not only study, but to evolve AI and put it at the service of society, and particularly within the scope of our project, at the service of media and all associated, let's say, subdomains of media. So why the media? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that the media is transversal to everything and anything in our day-to-day lives, whether that be the information that we produce or that we consume. It's present in news and journalism, whether that be on paper, whether that be on our computers, on our mobile devices, on our televisions, and journalism associated to it is on social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Regardless of the platform we use, it is media-centric. Media is behind those tools as well. So it's an entertainment we consume, television, cinema, radio, for example, and of course, present in arts and creativity. So media is quite broad, as you can see. It's present in our day-to-day lives, and it shapes us, the people who we are and how we act and so forth. And then that's how artificial intelligence comes into play into this game, because AI has a lot of promise, a lot of possibilities. It has a large capacity to disrupt the media industry. Of course, we hope for the good, but there are situations when it doesn't come with such a positive, let's say, objective. So that's something that we also try to address. But let's look at and face the context from a positive perspective. So related to that, Europe has a very unique, human-centric and trustworthy ethical brand vision on how AI has to follow certain ethical standards and how it is involved in the media sector and how it can benefit the media sector as well. Okay, so that's sort of like a bit of a rationale, background of why AI is important in our perspective, why it feeds media, and how that sort of encompasses what we're trying to do within the project. So what are we trying to do in this 4-year project that is AI4Media? What are we working on? So we have a European Media AI Research Agenda and Observatory. We're working on research and innovation activities. We take the information and lessons that we've learned and we apply them in real world use cases. We have the equity-free funding, which is essentially what we're presenting today, okay? Then we'll also have working on, and we have at the moment, in fact, an AI doctoral academy, which we call ADA. And all this sort of works together towards the delivery and establishment of a virtual center of excellence and a broader ecosystem that involves researchers, industry, and let's say regular citizens just like you and me in this center of excellence, people that can take advantage of and eventually even contribute to this knowledge that we have on AI and media. Okay, so just taking a couple of minutes to briefly address exactly what's going on in each of them, because in fact, in addition to your participation in the open call, AI4Media is very much open to have your participation in different types of activities that we're implementing. We have every so often we have surveys where we benefit from information from SME startups, researchers, and academia. So there are different activities that I'm going to address where your participation may be of value. And that goes beyond, let's say, just participating in the funding program that I'm presenting today. So the European Media AI Research and Agenda Observatory is simply put, basically our attempt to do a thorough analysis, observations of what are current media and AI research agendas, what are the policy recommendations that exist in place, what other policy recommendations can be brought forward based on the learnings that we make within the project, and based on that also contribute to a potential new European Media AI Observatory. Okay, then we have research and innovation activities. So being a research and innovation action or type of project, what we're trying to do is, of course, make significant advances in the type of research that we do and on the type of topics AI and media related that we are investing in. So we focus on areas such as emerging artificial intelligence paradigms, new types of learning, such as decentralized learning, robustness and privacy in AI, artificial intelligence for multimedia content analysis and creation, and even human and society-centered artificial intelligence technology. So this is just like a very short summary of the breadth of different research and innovation activities and topics that we are focusing on. So leveraging this new research that we're developing in the project, we also take that and we apply it into real world applications and use cases. Okay, so we have 7 topics that we're focusing on, that we're developing use cases, pilots on, and these are related to social media and disinformation, smart news assistants, high quality video production automation, social sciences and humanities, games, video games in that case, human co-creation and reorganization, and content moderation. So again, here, a very broad number of use cases that we are focusing on. So essentially here, this is the equity-free funding or the open calls, the funding that we're making available. I'm not going to spend too much time here because, of course, this is the core of today's session. So I'll move to the next slide. In terms of the AI and doctoral academy, essentially what we're trying to do to sort of kickstart this idea of a center of excellence, we want to leverage the multiple knowledge that our partners have, the multiple knowledge that exists related to AI across Europe, and sort of integrate that into an initial doctoral academy, a place where there are short to medium term courses on different artificial intelligence topics associated to media. Okay, so we've established this brand, IDA. It offers these short courses. It fosters the mobilization of students to be able to go from partners to other, from institution to institution, and by doing that also not only improve their own research activities, but also learn and engage in academic and industrial activities related to these research topics that they're focusing on. And then lastly, we have, in fact, what I've been mentioning a couple of times, this virtual center of excellence and ecosystem, okay? This place which will be the go-to destination for any stakeholder, whether that be a researcher, someone who's directly involved in the industry, to visit this virtual center of excellence and be informed or educated on any topic that they might find relevant, to invest or secure funding. So it starts here, but eventually can escalate to different types of other types of funding. Of course, being a center of excellence and being an ecosystem, it is a great place to establish contacts, to network, because it will be bringing in different types of stakeholders from across Europe or abroad. And essentially, an end goal is just to facilitate the exchange of expertise, knowledge across all types of people who are involved in these areas. Okay, so apologies, but I think this is a duplicate of a slide. So just to wrap up, who we are a large project, 30 partners in different areas of AI and media. Okay, for example, F Success is an SME or a startup, if we may call, which has the F Success platform, which offers multiple opportunities for investment and other services. And we're involved in this project primarily to organize this funding opportunity. But we, of course, have academia, we have researcher centers, we have industrial partners as well, and a large group of associate members that want to learn from what we're delivering, that want to take advantage of the results that we achieve as early as possible. So this is actually maybe a first invitation if you'd like to be part of an associate, if you'd like to be an associate member and maybe reap the benefits of what we have to offer, then you can go to our website and join as an associate member. There's no cost involved. It's just a matter of filling in a short form and requesting access to be an associate member. Okay, so in a nutshell, in more or less 10 minutes, that's essentially what the AI4Media project is, what it is offering, and how eventually you can also benefit from the project on the side of or in parallel to what you might be able to get through participating in the open call, which is this second session, the second part of the session that we're presenting today. So I see that there are a couple of questions already in the chat, but maybe I'll get to them at the end if that's okay, just to not lose my train of thought. Okay. So moving on then to the second part of the session, in the actual open call, the guidelines, the rules to participate, how you can benefit, what you'll be able to get by participating in the funding program. We've structured this into, let's say, 9 main topics. So we'll go through the objectives, the tracks and challenges, okay? The timeline, the funding scheme, how you can participate, what you have to keep in mind, the application, how to participate, and the application form. What exactly is the evaluation process? The sub-project implementation. So this is relevant if you are selected for funding, okay? And some final tips to consider, and then to wrap up, we'll have the Q&A where I'll get to your specific questions. If there is something that I might not be able to answer today, then I'll take note of the emails of the people that have answered them, and I will promise to get back to you with an answer in the next 24 hours, okay? So let's get on to this specific part of the presentation. Okay, so in terms of objectives of the open call and generally the funding program, that we're carrying out. So this is our second open call, and we had one that was launched at a similar time last year, and there are projects that are still ongoing. That's the first batch of projects wrapping up now in November, and let's say the research projects will wrap up in February next year. But nevertheless, what we're trying to achieve through the open calls is to engage entrepreneurs, companies, and that can be startups, an SME, and even mid-caps, as well as researchers, higher education organizations, research centers. And what we want is to see and to help fund you to develop new research and applications in the AI and media domains, okay? And by doing so, we want these solutions, this research to contribute also to the pool of knowledge that we're developing, contributing to, and have your solutions and research also contribute to that platform, this ecosystem of knowledge, okay? So we want to attract AI researchers, okay, developing new and innovative AI research, and of course, the RTOs, the startups, the SMEs. We want you to develop new applications, new solutions for the media sector, either by taking advantage of anything that we've already developed within the project, or creating your new solutions, leveraging any existing material solutions from other sectors, and then being able to adjust it to the media sector, okay? So let's say in a simplified manner, considering the breadth of AI, the multiple applications of AI, you might be able to take AI solutions from some other non-media related sector, take something that is like open source or easy, free to use, and adapt it to the media sector, which is, of course, as I've been mentioning, the focus of AI4Media, okay? So with this engagement, what we're trying to achieve, as I've been sort of insisting multiple times, is we want to increase our own network, this virtual center of excellence. We want to foster innovation, whether that be cross-border, cross-sector, and contribute in a positive manner to progress in AI and the media sector. Okay, so the open call is structured into two tracks. We have research track, which is focused, of course, as the name suggests, on research, on developing research, like more traditional research. And then we have the applications track, which is more related to the industrial sector, more related to developing actual concrete solutions that can be used in a more accelerated manner by the industry, okay? Keep in mind, the research track will last, projects funded under the research track will run for 12 months, okay? And those funded under the application track will run for 9 months. A question that we receive often is, I'm an SME, can I apply to the research track? Yes. And if you're a researcher and want to apply to the application track, the same goes. So keep in mind, we're not if you're SME, you don't have to only apply to one type of track. There's no sort of specific limit. The type of project that we expect in each type of track, is sort of the differentiating factor here, okay? And both of these projects, regardless of being 9 or 12 months, they have 3 stages, stages or sprints, which is sprint 1, sprint 2, and sprint 3, which have either 3 or 4 months respectively, okay? So in a nutshell, different timelines and different expectations with regard to what is the key output from the research or the application track. Each one of these tracks has allocated to it a different number of challenges, okay? So we carried out a process, or within the project, we did, let's say, a very thorough, exhaustive research in the sense that we developed a roadmap for AI that you can find on our website. And we use that sort of as the backbone of defining these challenges for the research and application tracks. Okay, so what you see here are the research track challenges. There are 11 specific challenges. I'm not going to go into detail on what they are, on what the content is. It is very important that you visit or read the documentation and consult Annex 1.1, which has exactly the scope of the challenge and what the specific objective and expectation associated to each of these challenges is, okay? And then you can, as part of your application process, select one of these specific challenges. We're looking here at research track, but the same will apply to the applications track. So on the F-Success platform and in the specific AI4Media open call to, let's say, a submission page, you'll be able to select one of these challenges, research or application, or you can select the open challenge. If you have a very innovative research or application idea that you think doesn't exactly fit within any of these more specific challenges, then you're free to select the open challenge and submit your proposal there. Keep in mind something very important. So we're only going to fund 5 projects for the research track and 5 projects for the application track. We're also prioritizing the proposals that have submitted to the specific challenges. And on top of that, we want to ensure a broader distribution of the proposals across the different challenges that we have defined. Okay, so we've defined a maximum number of proposals per challenge that we've defined. You know, regardless of the final scoring of the different proposals to each one of these tracks, there's going to be, let's say, a maximum number of proposals that we will fund for each of these specific challenges. Specifically, let's give an example. Imagine that we had 10 proposals submitted to the challenge 1, reinforcement learning, and the challenge of generalization. Even if these 10 proposals were the highest score proposals of all submissions received, we would only be funding 2, okay? Because as I mentioned, we want to ensure a distribution of proposals across the different challenges. And then there's going to be of course, a distribution where we'll have to look at the scores and do that distribution per challenge. Doesn't mean that every challenge will have a project or funded, but it means that we will try to the extent possible, depending, of course, on number of submissions to each challenge. We'll try to ensure an equal, well, some kind of distribution in that regard. So these are the research challenges. Then we have the applications track challenges. The idea is more or less the same, okay, as before. The specific aspect here is that if you're targeting an open challenge, in the case of the application track, we're looking that the solution that you develop must have a TRL level of 7 at the end of the sub-granted project, okay? Not at the beginning, but by the end of the 9-month program that you're developing. Okay, so hopefully that is sufficiently clear in terms of how the application and research tracks and respective challenges work. If there's any questions, then feel free to use the Q&A and we'll answer those at later on in our session. Some important considerations to keep in mind. So all proposals should develop new or expand on existing research that or applications that you might already be working on, but that not have been previously funded by the EC or another program. Okay, so what's this mean? It doesn't mean that has to be, completely new. What we're trying to be specific here is that you can't be working on the same ideas and being funded 2 times for the same specific type of research or application work. Okay, you might have had like a specific idea and matured it, but now we're looking for a new form of funding. Then okay, that makes sense that you use this new opportunity to continue the work that you've done before. Here is this, let's say, a repeat of the item I mentioned before related to the open challenge of the application track, focusing on a TRL level 7. And something very important to keep in mind, and as I've mentioned before, so we want to increase the value of the platform, of the network, the breadth of knowledge that we have within AI4Media. So what we're expecting and what is expected also of the work of the solutions, the research that is developed and implemented within the program, is that the research tools be also be made available on our platform as part of our AI4Media ecosystem. Okay, this does not mean that they have to be handed over to us, be made free, completely open source, and that you hand over the IP related to your work. It just means that you're making available also through our, let's say, ecosystem, the work that you've been doing, and then, but of course, you keep ownership of such work. Okay. So that's something important to keep in mind. It's not about you developing work and then keeping it to yourself and you move on. It's about sharing. It's about this idea that the European Commission has in place and the principle of open access, let's say, applied to our specific case here. All right, so moving on to the timeline. So today we are at October 20th. We launched maybe around 3 weeks ago, okay? And the open call will be running until the 30th of November. So that means roughly 40 days still to prepare and submit your proposal. On the 1st of December, then we will start the evaluation process. Okay, so we are going to start next week, run an expression of interest for evaluators. So all of the evaluation is going to be run with the support of external evaluators, but also with the involvement of our AI4Media team, people that have specific knowledge in the different challenges that have been defined. Okay, so once the evaluation is done, which we'll get to in a second, we'll be doing the selection and contracting. So there's a 3-month period that encompasses all of these processes, these steps of the process, and the projects are planned, scheduled to start on the 1st of March or 1st, 2nd of March. Then we'll have our, let's say, our formal kickoff meeting with all the funded projects, and we'll begin our activities. So application projects start on March the 1st, 2023, and run for 9 months. So that's roughly until the 30th of November, 2023. And research projects are 12 months, which mean that they would go on into February 2024. Okay, that's more or less it. Apologies. So the tentative date for notification of results, in case you're wondering, will be more or less the 6th of February if all goes well. And that'll give us approximately 2-3 weeks to take care of all the contracting aspects that are essential in these type of projects. Regarding the funding scheme, okay, so there is 500,000 euros available for this open call. It's the same amount of money that we had for the first open call, and this is going to allow us to fund 10 projects. As I mentioned before, that's 5 projects in the application track and 5 projects in the research track, and the 50,000 euros must cover and represent 100% of the total costs of the project. Okay, some of you might be used to having, open call opportunities or funding opportunities where we say that we're going to cover 70% of your total costs or something like that. In this case, it's 100%. So when you're preparing your section on the budget, on the resources, keep in mind that the value that we want to see is 50,000 euros or below. Okay, 100% of total costs, including indirect costs. Okay, so this is an error that we've seen before that happened in the previous open call as well. So keep in mind that the indirect costs, which must represent 25% of the budget, should be within the 50,000 euros as well. Mentioned before, activities that are already funded by other grants cannot be funded by AI4Media. Okay, so this is the principle of not allowing double funding in under any circumstance. And this is a lump sum based type of project. Okay, so although we want to understand exactly how you plan your budget or how you're allocating your budget to personnel, to other costs, etc., we're not going to be checking this type of detail or this type of aspect in detail in the project implementation. What we want to see is quality results being delivered at the end of each sprint. If the results are achieved and we're satisfied with what has been done, then you get paid for your efforts. We're not checking timesheets or expense reports or things like that. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's not that there isn't that extra degree of bureaucracy as maybe happens in Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe projects that you might be involved in. So who can participate? Okay. We've sort of been mentioning this previously before in regard to the objectives and who we want to target. Essentially, proposals can only be submitted by single entities, okay? One entity per proposal. So if your proposal X must be submitted by entity Y, it is not for teams, it cannot be entity Y and Z. It can have multiple people within that entity described in the specific section of the proposal, but only one entity per proposal. It's not a multi-team or consortium style project. So eligible type of applicants, companies, whether that be European mid-caps around the 500 people mark, SMEs following the standard European guidelines of up to 250,000, up to 250 persons. And then there's the other variables related to, which I don't recall at the moment, related to the turnover and similar. Micro SMEs and startups. You can, of course, apply as an individual entrepreneur, as that's very common these days. Of course, you must be established in an eligible country to be eligible. And then it's open to European secondary and higher education establishments, research institutes, non-for-profit universities. Okay, so that's sort of covered by higher education. So these are sort of like the three main eligible types of applicants, and you must be from an eligible country. So that's any of the 27, 28 member states of the EU and their outermost regions, H2020 associated countries. There's a specific document and the guidelines that you can consult to double check if your country is one of the associated countries. And another question that we often get is if UK applicants are eligible to participate. Yes, you are still eligible to participate if you are from the UK. Okay. So who can participate? As part of this, and what we also check for is conflicts of interest. Okay, so you may not be linked. You are not eligible to participate if you are in any way linked to any of the AI4Media beneficiaries or linked third parties. Okay, so keep that in mind. If another common question that we get is, I work at, for example, the AI4Media coordinator is CERT. From Greece, but it is a large institute represented by various laboratories or research departments. Even if you're from a different department other than the one that is responsible for the coordination of the project, you are not eligible to participate because you are in fact the same entity. You are linked to the beneficiary. Okay, so that's what we're trying to achieve and describe from that second bullet point. Keep in mind, however, and I mentioned at the beginning, when I've sent my invitation for you to join as an associate member, any associate member is eligible to participate. Okay, there is no formal link to AI4Media if you are an associate member. It's just like there is an informal link. You're someone with an extra interest in the project and you get access to earlier results, but this does not constitute a formal link. So any associate member has the same opportunities as any other entity outside Europe or member state that is interested in applying. No preference is given, and it's not even a question. So we don't even have a list of these members. So keep that in mind. If you're a member, you can participate. If you're not, you're equally eligible to participate as well. But in case you have any questions, as I like to say, in case of doubt, reach out. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. Only one proposal per applicant can be submitted. Okay, so if there is an exception, which we'll get to that in a second. An SME, an individual entrepreneur, a startup, these types of entities can only participate with one proposal. But The exception is with secondary higher education or research organizations where you can have two proposals, okay? So this sort of goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning, where there's multiple departments within a single institution that work on, similar areas or have joint interests. So in these situations, there can be two proposals, like for example, research department A and research department B from university X can both submit a proposal, but only one is going to be accepted for funding. In case there is more than one, what we're going to consider are the first two that were submitted, okay? So it's always important maybe to, within your institution, if you think there might be that risk of happening, maybe reach out to other colleagues and try to understand if they're also preparing a submission to the open call, just to make sure that there isn't a chance of having too many submissions from the same institution. So how to participate and the application form. So all proposals must be submitted exclusively via F6S. Okay, so you can visit our website and you'll have direct access to the F6S platform. We recommend that you register as soon as possible and get acquainted with the platform if you've never used it before and the different fields that we're requesting you to fill out. Okay, and simultaneously visit the AI4Media website and check out all of the relevant information and documentation associated to the open call, particularly the open call overview, which is just like in a nutshell what the open call is about, the guidelines for applicants, which are all the rules that we're trying to address today in this webinar, Annex 1.1, which is a list of challenges. So all the 19 challenges that I mentioned before are provided in detail, described in detail with regard to the context, what we expect, what the objectives are, and so forth. Then there's the technical proposal templates, okay? So this is where you will have to put the actual description of your proposal following the 4 criteria sections that we'll show in just a minute, okay? There's a couple of other annexes there that are merely templates or for reference purposes. From the first open call to the second, we've tried to reduce the level of burden that, let's say, applicants have at this stage. Sometimes getting signatures from legal representatives, which takes time and sort of takes our attention away from the actual proposal writing process. So we're only going to request sub-grant agreement templates, declarations of honor, and SME declaration form in the case of an SME, if you are selected for funding. Okay, so at this stage, it's important that you make yourself aware of what these documents say, which you're going to be requested to sign, but you will only have to formally submit the technical proposal in addition to filling out the rest of the form on F6S. So what is this F6S form that you might be asking about in case you haven't seen it before? So on the left is sort of the entry page where you get access to the form. So this is just the general page. And to jump into the actual submission form, you can either in the URL at the end of AI4Media open call to/apply, jump into it directly, or clicking on in this main page where it says connect with Samuel and Katerina. That'll take you into the form as well. The form is essentially what you see in the right-hand picture. Okay, it's a set of maybe 30 questions, I think. Don't recall the exact number, but it essentially asks information about the title, the acronym. It asks you to provide a brief abstract that will be used for, let's say, promotional purposes. Information about the entity that is submitting the proposal, some other details. It'll give you the option to, it'll have the button to upload the proposal in PDF format, a couple of checkboxes, and then you'll be free to submit, okay? So again, use the link, visit the platform, get acquainted with it as soon as you can, just in case there's any doubts that you might have. We can get an answer back to you within a reasonable amount of time. So what exactly is this technical annex that I've been mentioning about? So it's a Word template that you can download off of our website on the specific page for the open call, and it is structured into 4 sections. Okay, which is the excellence. And what exactly is this proposal that you're preparing? What is your innovative solution? What is this research that you want to develop within the project? That's the excellence. Then you have the impact. Exactly what kind of impact is your project going to have on the AI and media sectors, Europe as a whole, on you as an applicant, and so forth. Then there's the implementation, which is the second page, where basically we ask you to describe exactly what activities you're going to do, what these include, how much effort is going to be required, what kind of milestones and KPIs do you aim to achieve within the project. Then there's a second part, which is the applicant, where you describe exactly your capacity to deliver the project. What kind of knowledge do you bring to this project, okay? And then you describe a number of the people that are going to be involved, maybe provide a brief CV so that the evaluators can try and understand exactly the capacity of the team. And then there's the value, which is, as I mentioned before, just for us to be able to assess the rationale of the budget that you're proposing. It won't make any sense at all to have only like a small amount of effort allocated to personnel and have a lot of effort or a lot of costs allocated to other costs, to software, to hardware, or whatever. Okay. So keep that in mind. It has to be a rational, there has to be a valid justification behind your proposal. Something that is often overlooked, but is in the footnotes in the template, is that we want you, as part of your promotional activities, to be able to also participate in some kind of promotion event, a conference, a trade show, something similar along those lines. So you should include in your budget travel costs for such an activity. Okay, so now that we're a bit more free to travel and traveling is back and forth, it should be normal that you could attend some kind of event and showcase the research or application activities that you're carrying out. So with regard to the evaluation process, as I mentioned before, once the end of the submission comes on 30th November, we proceed with evaluation. We do an initial eligibility check against the type of applicant, the country. We'll look at the budget just in case there isn't a proposal requesting twice as much as we've defined as our maximum cap, which is the 50,000. Okay, so if you're eligible to participate, you'll move on to the next phase, the remote evaluation. If not, then we will send you a rejection letter informing you of how you've not met the eligibility criteria that we've defined. The external remote evaluation will be handled by external evaluators and by people involved in AI4Media, partners of the project with experience in the challenges, as I've mentioned before. Okay, so each, as I'll show in just a minute, each proposal will be evaluated by at least 2 people, possibly 3, which will assess your proposal against the criteria aligned with the template that you've just seen before. If you move on to the next stage, which is interviews, you'll be informed. If not, you will receive a notification of such results. Then there'll be the online interviews. And if you move to that, if you're successful after that phase, then of course you move on to the sub-grant agreement. Regardless of where you end up in this, let's say, pipeline of evaluation, you will always be informed of your result. So exactly what is this evaluation process? The eligibility check checks against the type of applicants, if you're single, legal entities. Okay, so keep in mind, if we see a project with 2 partners, then that goes against our rules. You'll be informed, and unfortunately, you'll have to be excluded. For example, if in fact the proposal in a first transversal analysis, if it addresses the AI and media domains, if the annex that you've submitted follows the template that we've provided, okay, it must follow the template that you've just seen in a couple of slides ago. Okay, so section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. That's what the evaluators will be looking and assessing. Do not submit a PDF with a value, with your like value proposition, with something that you've used in multiple other occasions. This is not eligible. It is not acceptable. It happens very frequently that we get these. So keep that in mind. A template has been provided to you requesting that you detail specific items that the experts will be assessing, which are exactly in this slide here on the right. So the excellence, the impact, the implementation, and the value. I've gone through these before in the previous slide, so I'm not going to go through them again in detail. So there's yellow bullet points indicating specifically what you should address in each of the sections. So if there's something that you missed, you might be scored lower because of not addressing that item in detail. So scoring, again, the fact that we are using multiple evaluators means that the final score is going to be the average of the 2 or more evaluations provided by the evaluators. Okay, there is a minimum threshold for each criteria of 3, and the overall threshold is 12. Okay, so there's 4 criteria, and for each criteria, you must score at least a 3 to be considered for, let's say, funding. Anything below 3 or a total of 12 will mean that you are disqualified. Okay, and all proposals will be ranked based on the overall score. And then where there are tie breaks, we, let's say, filter them by impact, excellence, implementation, value, and gender balance. And also keep in mind that there's the distribution per challenge so that we get that balance of proposals per specific challenges. In this open call, there is also an interview stage. Okay, this doesn't always happen in other funding, cascade funding opportunities, but in AI4Media, we have this second stage of the evaluation. So as we're going to be funding 10 projects, we're going to invite the top 20 proposals, so twice the amount that we're funding, for an interview. Okay, and what we expect, or what the purpose of the interview is, for us, for the evaluators to better understand any specific element or the multiple specific elements of your proposal, the quality and the excellence, the impact, exploitation potential, the quality of the work plan, and the quality of you as an applicant. So the proposals, as part of the interview, you can bring with you, well, when we come to that point, of course, when we come to that moment, should you get there, more information will be provided, but of course you can use other material in addition to a presentation to sort of justify, show the added value and impact of your proposal. Okay, so if you're, for example, already working, have some kind of a prototype of an idea, then you can show that as part of your process, because it's not something that you can easily show as part of the actual the Word document that you submit with the proposal. Okay, so interviews will be approximately 60 minutes. And the final overall score that will determine the 10 projects that are funded will be a percentage of, will be a final weighted score of 50% of the remote evaluation and 50% of the interviews. Okay, so we're trying to balance out that particular aspect of the evaluation. So should we come to the moment where you actually enter the sub-project implementation, the 9 or 12-month implementation period, then you can expect the following from us. So along this period, you will be allocated a monitor and a coach. Monitor will likely be me or a colleague, someone from F6S. A coach will be some kind of partner from the project, most likely someone with knowledge in the challenge or the topics associated to the challenge that you have submitted your proposal to, someone that can help you along the way, someone that you can exchange ideas with, someone that can help you in any circumstance that you might need. Okay, so that's something that is defined early on in the project and the fine-tuning of your proposal as well. Keep in mind that as a result of the evaluation, you'll probably get a recommendation of maybe addressing this to a further extent, improving this or that. It's important that you also try to integrate that into your overall, say, project. So that'll be part of your initial, like, 1 month of the sprint 1. And allocation of coach and monitor I've mentioned below. We'll provide you business support. We'll organize a boot camp and online events to help you I'd say be able to deliver in better conditions any solutions that you develop, okay? And of course, something that we want is to support you in promoting project results, okay? So I noticed that there's a small mistake here. The support in promoting project results is more along the full timeline of the project, and the bootcamp and business support is maybe later on in the project where things are already a bit more where results are a bit more mature and are a stage where they can actually be promoted outside of let's say the bubble of your own project. Associated to each sprint, there is a couple of reports that are mandatory, and it is based on what is included in those reports that we make available back to you, the amount of funds that are allocated associated to each of these sprints. So at 25% of the 50,000, and 35% of the 50,000, and 40% respectively. All right, so just before we wrap up and then take any questions, I see that there's quite a few. Some tips when preparing a proposal. Download and read carefully all of the documentation that I mentioned before, particularly Annex 1, the guidelines for applicants. So there you're going to find in more detail everything that I've presented today. Okay, so this presentation is more or less aligned with what you'll find in those guidelines. With, of course, here I've presented less detail. So read that with care. If you have any questions, reach out to us and we'll try to clarify anything that might not be fully clear to you. Okay, open the application on F6S as soon as possible. Submit as soon as possible. Do not try to avoid submitting in the final hours, because things might there might be a hiccup here or there, and then if you want to reopen your proposal for any fix, it might not give us even sufficient time to address that for you. So try to deliver a week before if possible. The earlier the better. I know it's not always possible, but it's a recommendation that is worth mentioning. You only have 10 pages for the proposal for the 4 sections. So be clear, specific, objective, try to be concise and get to the point of your things, of your ideas. So make sure that the evaluators can understand what you're working on, what you're trying to achieve, and that they're not questioning everything that you've put in, okay? So just a couple of links and contacts. I'm not going to go through these in detail. The presentation will be shared with you, and then you can, of course, access. This is all available through the documentation that has been made available to you through our website. Okay, so that being said, we'll now look at a few Q&As that I've seen are in the chat. So just give me a second while I take a sip. Okay, so I'm sorry that this has been a bit of a monologue, but such is the format of webinars. Let me try to answer question by question, okay? So there's a first question on if there is any requirement to deliver our research or development work to anyone else, and we have to share what we've built. So this goes back to what I've mentioned before. I believe what we're expecting is that results, the work that you've developed within the project somehow must be made available back to us in open access format, or be, let's say, made available to the wider AI community, the AI media community, so that it is, shared. It is shared resources, shared knowledge. Okay, this does not mean that you lose access or intellectual property over what you've developed, the work and the effort that you've put in. It just means that a part or in total of everything that you've done is shared with the community. Okay, so I think that answers your question. If not, please send us an email and we'll try to get back to you in more detail. So that's from Tom. Another question from Tom, saying that his startup building a music portal platform. It's come under one of your review articles, and what comments would it? Okay, so Tom, you've asked a very specific question related to what you're doing. Maybe if you'll agree, we'll get back to you with a more specific answer via email. It's not like a general question that is relevant to everyone else. So if you'll agree, we'll get back to you on this specific answer afterwards. So a question from Lampros saying, in AI4Media first open call, 5 projects were funded other research and 5 for application. How many proposals did we receive? Is a total of 10 restrictive, or do you plan to fund more projects? Okay, so in the first open call, we did in fact fund 10 projects following the same approach as here. So 5 research, 5 applications. If I'm not mistaken, the total number of eligible proposals was around 48. Okay, I think we had 60 total proposals, 48 eligible. Okay, so you can do the quick maths in your head to see essentially what was the success rate there. In principle, yes, 10 is going to be the restrictive number because we only have 500,000 plus, a couple of thousand left over from the first open call. So that doesn't allow us to be more flexible in the number of proposals that we can fund. So 10 will be the limit, 5 application, 5 research. Okay. So the only way this might change if for some reason there was only like 3 eligible proposals in research, and that would allow us to fund an extra 2 in the application. Okay, so that's the only scenario where there would be, a bit of a change from one track to the other. But that was not the scenario in the first open call. I don't think it will be a similar scenario in this open call. A question from Ricard asking if it's better for a project to cover more than one challenge. I wouldn't say that there's any extra benefit in doing that. So in fact, you can only select one of the challenges in the form. So that's more or less what the evaluator is going to look for. If for one or more reason in the excellence of your proposal, you mention that your project is, cross-challenge, addresses more than one challenge, that might be of added value, but it's not something that will, let's say, score any other applicant below because they only covered one challenge. If it makes sense to you to cover more than one challenge, then you're welcome to do it, but that is not a decisive factor. Okay, so I hope that is done. Another question related to the TRL levels. So TRL levels are relevant here for the open challenge in the application track, where we've mentioned before that the minimum TRL level at the end of the project should be 7, okay, at the end. So if your solution right now is at TRL 5 or 4, you've already tested, you have some kind of prototype, what we expect is that over the 9-month period of the application project, you are able to reach a TRL level 7. So there's a question from anonymous attendee related there's a question related to the subcontracting. So in principle, I don't have exactly the full scope of the limitations with regard to subcontracting, but I think that it has been made non-eligible to I think we've excluded subcontracting as part of the projects in this AI4Media project. Keep in mind, however, that we distinguish subcontracting from, for example, an entity having contractors. Okay, so which is often the case now that we have like remote working very common, and we have companies from France, Spain, Portugal, Italy contracting people from across the globe. Okay, but these are to some degree already employees of the company, so that isn't, in our understanding, subcontracting. What is subcontracting is if you, company A, contracts the services of company B to implement a specific aspect of your solution. Okay, so this will only make sense, of course, for the application track. because research would be, of course, done internally. So I hopefully that answers the question. If not, then as I don't have a name and I won't be able to associate it to anyone, any specific subcontracting questions can be sent back to us, and we'll give you more information in a better position on that matter. So 2 questions here from Joan. Can the contribution to the AI4Demand platform be an open API allowing to use our services? So in principle, yes, that would be one way of interpreting or contributing to the platform. So an open API allowing that type of result, what you've done for other potential uses, is one of the ways in which you are making available your results. Okay, so in principle, yes, that is a viable option. If we submit, question number 2, if we submit different projects to the research and application track, will these be evaluated separately? So I'm not sure exactly what the point may be here, Joan, but you can't submit to both tracks. You can only submit one proposal, and that covers both tracks. Okay, hopefully that was clear to everyone from the presentation. But you can only submit one proposal. It doesn't matter to which track you're submitting. So if you're submitting a research project, then you can't submit to application and vice versa. Okay, so hopefully that rules out any question that you might have. If not, please send an email and we'll try to be more specific on that as well. Okay, so I withdraw the second question. Clarified, perfect. So a lot of questions. Do you expect to fund proposal in the open research challenge? We did in the first open call. We did fund proposals in open research challenge. Okay, so there was some challenges that didn't receive any submissions, which allowed us to fund the open research. But then again, there were less challenges at the time than there are now. But then again, it's very hard to say at this moment what exactly will be the turnout for each of the challenges. So it's not impossible, but maybe the fact that there is a bit more challenges defined, although some might be very niche, it could be yes, it could be no. Unfortunately, that's not something that we can provide a definitive answer on at this moment. So another question here is, so we can apply to the challenges less popular to have more chances. Can we have a percentage of the participation from open call 1 for each challenge? Okay, so that's not something we can actually tell you, because the challenges defined for this open call are very different from those of the first open call. So we don't have a degree of comparison that we can give you. Okay, so there was in the first open call 7 research challenges and I think 6 application challenges. And here we have almost twice as many research challenges. So we can't, any number that we give you would be misleading in regard to possibilities that you have with the success rate associated to each of these challenges. So again, and it's also hard for us to tell you what would be the less popular challenges or that we've defined, because it always depends on who the applicants are, to whom this open call reaches, specific topics of interest. Of course, we recognize that there are some challenges, themes that are very niche, music related to. There's only a handful of people that work in that area. And maybe more people work on solutions for social media, which is more demanding or triggers more participation. So there might be here or there 1 or 2 challenges where you can sort of understand that there might be more submissions than others, but it's very difficult for us to tell you that what exactly would be the scenario for this open call. So the recommendation that we can give is to try and develop the most innovative and convincing proposal that you can in the challenge that most suits the work that you're doing, and that would be our recommendation. So a last question, does it make any difference if the proposal was prepared by a one-person SME rather than by a multiple person SME? So in principle, it would not make much of a difference. Keep in mind that one of the type of applicants that are eligible to participate are individual entrepreneurs. Okay, so you might be submitting as an individual entrepreneur that is not established as an SME. Okay, so that is eligible. But if you are registered as a one-person SME, and if you submit as that type of entity, then it won't make much of a difference. What's going to make a difference is is the quality of your proposal, and then how you justify the competencies that you have in delivering the results, that you propose, and the ambition that you have. Okay, so it might be the case. We've had cases where there's an SME with 5 or 6 people listed, and there's 1 or 2 people that have just a minimal participation. So it doesn't really, it's not going to make a difference if in that regard, because we can't really assess what kind of contribution that person with very limited participation is going to have compared to someone that has, for example, that plans to work full time for 8 of the 9 months or the 7 of the 9 months in such a project. So again, what matters is the quality of the proposal, the ambition, how the actual, how can I put it, how feasible it is to deliver what you're proposing within the 9 months or the 12 months of the application or research track projects. That's what's important, that you sell your idea in a convincing manner, and that you show, whether you're 5 people or 1, that you have the capacity to deliver that project. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. And I think that I've addressed all of the questions that were provided. If not, I know a couple were a bit more broader or specific. I'll get to 1 or 2 specifically by email myself, because they were very specific to your question, to your context, I would say. Anything that was not clear from my part in terms of an answer, I kindly ask that you send me an email to this here, to opencall2@a4media.iti.gr. Okay, and I'll be more than happy to provide you a more clear answer. Okay, so I know we're 12 minutes past the hour, but if you'll allow me, and just to wrap up, before we say our goodbyes, just summarizing the open call in a nutshell. Okay, so we have up to 150,000 equity-free funding for 10 projects. Okay, if you're asking what equity-free funding means, it means that we have no stake in that project. That money is all for you. All 50,000 euros is for you if you develop, if you deliver the results that you've promised, and the reports that you submit at the end of each stage are convincing and meet our expectations. Okay. Keep in mind, again, single entities, no consortiums are allowed. Doesn't matter how many people you list as part of the entity, but it only can be company X, research organization or university Y, etc. Okay. SMEs, research organizations, entrepreneurs, secondary higher education are all eligible to apply, as long as you are from an eligible country. Okay, keep in mind. So keep that in mind. 10 projects funded, 5 per track, application track, research track. So I've been kind of insisting on that just for clarification. And then in terms of our value to you, market-driven services, providing you business and research support. And of course, you can always count with visibility and promotion. So we like to use our open call projects to help us as a project, AI4Media, to gain visibility. But of course, it is our position, our obligation as well, to give you visibility as a project, as an entity funded through our open call. Okay, and in fact, I can say now that over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be releasing a couple of videos with some of the projects funded under our first open call, which are still ongoing. So stay tuned to our social media accounts, and you'll be seeing some videos with some information, some recommendations, an extra bit of knowledge on what these projects are. You can also visit our website and see a bit more of what the funded projects are about, what they focus on as well. Maybe just to set your state of mind on what kind of projects have been funded in the first open call. So it's been around 75 minutes. And this is where the presentation comes to an end, and where I express my deepest thanks for having everyone here today. I hope that the session was informative, that it's clarified any questions that you might have, that's given you the information you need to start your proposal or to continue if you've already started. And I do hope that we receive from you in the next couple of weeks your submission. And again, I reiterate, if there's any questions that we might be able to answer you, any doubt that emerges from this session or over the next couple of weeks, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we'll be more than happy to clarify any questions you have. That being said, I wish everyone a lovely afternoon and a fantastic weekend ahead, and we'll be in touch. So wishing you all a pleasant preparation of your proposal and a lovely week. Thank you very much, everyone.